Hello, everyone. Good evening. I would like to call to order the Cumberland School Committee meeting Thursday, May 24th, 2018 at exactly 7:30 p.m., which reflects our new time for these meetings. I'd ask that you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Pleasure of the committee. Mr. Denon makes a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Demotica. All in favor? Ayes have it. 7-0. I believe there's a little bit of echoing. It's different on these microphones. Okay. Maybe it's me. Next item on the agenda, student government report, student activities. Anyone here? Please step up to the microphone. Hello.
Good evening. My name is Dylan Parmentier, and I am the student government treasurer.
And I'm Ty Skeldon. I'm the junior class vice president.
Welcome.
Student government, along with the rest of the school, took part in Teacher Appreciation Week this week, during the first week of May. During this week, student government planned a list of events to show our school's appreciation for our teachers, having one event each day. These events included having breakfast, hanging banners, greeting the teachers, and leaving goodies and notes in their mailboxes. Throughout the school years, the teachers do so much, so it was very good to give back a little bit. Furthermore, sandwiching Teacher Appreciation Week, CHS had its junior and senior proms. Junior prom was held at Venus de Milo in Swansea, Mass. On May 4th at 6:30 p.m. The night was very fun overall. Senior prom was held at the Atlantic Resort in Newport, Rhode Island on May 11th at 6:30 p.m. and was deemed equally a fun-filled night.
On April 30th, we participated in yet another blood drive, supporting our community and those in need. Student government officials volunteered and helped facilitate another successful event that seems to be a consistent trend with the blood drives nowadays. Furthermore, the first 2 weeks of May were when our students participated in AP exams. They worked hard all year for this one moment, and we hope scores turn out well when we get them back in July. Over the course of the week, we've been holding our annual class government elections during advisory. Next week, we'll hold our monthly government meeting where we elect next year's government officials. We're very excited to commit ourselves for the upcoming year. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes, regular meeting 5/10/2018. Approval of the special meeting 5/17/2018. Approval of the minutes for executive session 5/10/2018. Pleasure of the committee. Mr. Hess and Mr. Fiorillo make a motion to approve. Mr. Hess makes a motion to approve, second by Mr. Fiorillo. All in favor? Against? Passes 7-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, report out of executive session meeting. Report out of executive session meeting on 5/24/2018. Report out of executive session votes and a vote to seal the minutes of the executive session. Pleasure of the committee. Yeah, thank you. You know, this part I always get jammed up on this part, it seems. That's correct. There was no vote out of executive session, and I need a vote to seal the minutes. Mr. Hess makes a motion to vote to seal the minutes of executive session. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon. All in favor? Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you. I apologize. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Could you please join me down at the podium?
Mr. Mitchell, I would also like to welcome former school committee chairperson, Mr. Costa. Welcome. Thank you. Okay.
Stand over here in between the two bulky, handsome men. It is my pleasure to introduce to everyone the Cumberland School District 2018 Teacher of the Year. All right, so I've explained this process many times, but I think it's worth reviewing. Every year, we ask all of our principals to nominate someone that they feel is worthy of this recognition. That is District Teacher of the Year. And as you can imagine, we have some outstanding teachers, and it's really difficult to nominate one. But the one that we nominate is always exceptional and one that is a fine representative of our school district. Let me share with you what Kristen's principal wrote about her in her performance and why she felt that she was deserving of this award. Is it now? Thank you. Is it on? No, let's hope that I'm on. Okay. It is with great pleasure that I nominate Special Educator Kristen Costa as Cumberland's District Teacher of the Year. And let me just share some of the really nice things that Dina Sarah wrote about her. Kristen is highly dedicated to all of her students, working tirelessly to improve not only the academic skills, but their social, emotional well-being. Kristen works with the most vulnerable students and uses every opportunity as a teaching moment. She coaches their social interactions, deters acting out behaviors, and helps them learn ways to manage their emotions. All of her efforts are effective as her students go on to achieve remarkable progress throughout the year, and her work also has lasting effects on their functioning. Kristen celebrates the small successes of each student as she's working to help students realize that their hard work is paying off, as well as to help them to see their potential. Her devotion to her students is remarkable. She has been available to help families after hours, on weekends, and before school. Kristen created parent training opportunities, is in constant communication with families, and collaborates with outside providers regarding ways to improve student behavior. She modeled best practices and strategies for new staff, both inside and outside of the Success Program, while she continues to hone in on her own professional growth. Kristen always goes above and beyond for her students, her support staff, and the families she services, and these are just a few of the reasons why Kristen has earned this distinction as the 2018 District Teacher of the Year. So there are two really nice plaques to commemorate this award. One is a plaque that Kristen gets to take home and hang in her room. And another is this plaque, which hangs in the main entrance of this building. It identifies all of the District Teacher of the Year recipients since 2011. Kristen's name has already been added, and we will make sure that this hangs proudly in our reception area. So, Kristen, congratulations to you. We're really proud of the fine work that you do in our school district. Okay, did you get that, Rachel?
Thank you.
Joseph, come on up. Joseph, please. Everyone, this is Joseph Mador. Did I pronounce your last name correct?
Yeah, Mador.
Mador. And last night at the high school, they had their annual World Language Recognition Night where they, all of the students who have excelled in world languages in the high school, some enter the World Language Honor Society. Others earn a seal of biliteracy, which is quite a remarkable feat. And there were other students in the high school that were recognized for the fine work that they're doing in world languages. Joseph has risen to the top of our students, not only in Cumberland, at Cumberland High School, but Joseph has been designated the Rhode Island Foreign Language Student of the Year. So let me just share, and I should also acknowledge that, there were some really nice things said about him last night, and I want to share with you what some of those things were that were shared with the audience that was in attendance at this special evening. Joseph Madore was presented with the Rhode Island Foreign Language Student of the Year Award. This award is determined on the basis of academic performance and interest in world language studies, as evidenced by the transcript, letters of recommendation, and an essay. Joseph was selected from a pool of many very worthy candidates. The selection committee was very impressed with his academic achievement, desire and commitment to learning multiple languages, and his self-motivation in immersing himself in language and cultural studies as an essential part of his life. One of his teachers described Joseph as intelligent, diligent, respectful, and hardworking. Another teacher said that he's looked upon as a mentor by other students and is always willing to help. Joseph scored in the 99th percentile in the National Spanish exam, earning a gold medal, and graduates with the seal of biliteracy in English, Spanish, and Arabic. On behalf of the school committee, I'd like to congratulate Joseph Madore on receiving this prestigious honor. It is obviously well-deserved. Congratulations to you, Joseph. Congratulations. Now, if you could do your acceptance speech in Arabic. Okay, I guess we're good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I got one question for Joseph.
Mr. DeMonica.
How many languages can you speak?
Joseph? Could you come up to the microphone, please? We have a question from school committee member, Mr. DeMonica. Mr. DeMonica.
Joseph, how many languages can you speak now? Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Yes.
I would be remiss if I also did not acknowledge his teacher, or one of his teachers, and the teacher of the World Language Department. He is the content leader, Sergio DaCosta. So I don't know if you were the person who nominated him, but I think it's important to acknowledge Mr. DaCosta as well.
Thank you, Mr. DaCosta. Welcome. Kristen, congratulations again as well. Thank you for your hard work.
I just have one more thing to share with the committee,
Mr. Mitchell.
Chairman, and that is just to give a quick update. We did talk about this in our fiscal subcommittee meeting, but I think it's important for the committee to know that a tremendous amount of planning takes place with all of the facilities work that we're going to be doing over the summer. We have invited the principals of community and the administration from the high school to attend the meeting so that they can be a part of the planning. I think one of the most critical things that has to happen in a timely fashion is getting everything moved out because of all of the work that has to be done with the asbestos abatement flooring. And then once everything is moved out, the floors are taken up, the abatement takes place, and then the tilers have to come in and lay the new tile, and then the movers have to come back and move everything back in place. And think about your own home and what it's like to take things out of one room. Imagine what it's like to have everything removed from almost an entire building. It requires a tremendous amount of coordination. So we meet weekly, and there is a significant amount of work that's taking place in, I believe, all of our buildings this summer. We will continue to meet every Wednesday, and there'll probably be a point where we also, where we may need to meet more than just once a week, but lots and lots of planning for this extensive summer work that we'll be doing in the summer of 2018. Thank you, Mr.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Any questions? Next item on the agenda, Chairperson's report, FY 2018 budget update. There's no new update on that, and this will be removed off of the agenda moving forward. Next item on the agenda is the bond referendum update. Mr. Prignano, if you could come up. Mr. Prignano, if you could come up to the microphone and just give us a glaze over on the bond referendum update, please.
Yeah, we've talked about this with the school committee and joint members of the town council. There's the opportunity this November that'll be on the ballot with the state that Governor Raimondo is proposing additional bond issue put aside to repair school buildings throughout the state. I think there'll be some $250 million on the ballot, and they're also, with that money, they're also, to get communities to take advantage of this, they're offering bonuses on certain categories. So, for example, there's 7 different benchmarks. Some of them are, if the expanding schools, school additions. Some of them are consolidating schools, if you're able to consolidate classes and that type of stuff, as well as health and safety items, etc. And each of those bonuses will be worth 5 additional points. So Cumberland, when we do a school construction project that's been approved by RIDE, gets a 44% of it paid for by the state. And it varies community to community depending on the wealth of that community. So, for example, Providence is like 90% reimbursement when the state pays for 90% of their capital projects. So anyhow, that extra incentive repairs that Cumberland needs to make in the district, we could earn up to 64% of the state paying for it. So that's quite a bit. When the state's going to pay for 2/3 of your projects, if there are projects you need to do, you should do them. And so what we're doing right now, so that we can put something on the ballot this November in Cumberland, is sizing that bond issue. We're going through the Jacobs report, which people have heard about. State hired a company out of Texas, Jacobs, and they came in and looked at all Rhode Island schools to try to get a sense of, what was needed in each building, as well as we also have, because we've been doing projects the last 2 summers, we've had reports, they call them stage 2 reports that have gone to the state that have been approved for construction work we've done. So in those reports, we've had a jump on knowing what we need to do. And so we're right now comparing those 2 reports and trying to put together a manageable bond issue that we would like to put on the ballot in November. So I'm sure people in Cumberland will be hearing a lot more about it, because the opportunity to have the state pay for 2/3 of the repairs that need to be done, is really should be taken advantage of, rather than the district paying potentially the whole project itself. So I don't know if there's any other questions, or that's kind
that
of
was
the
perfect.
process.
Yeah, thank you. That was
Okay.
perfect. Thank you, Mr. Prignano. Any questions? School committee? Thank you. Next item on the agenda, reports of standing committees. Payment of bills. Mr. DeMonica.
Mr. Chairman, there were no payment of bills this time around.
Thank you, Mr. DeMonica. Next item on the agenda, fiscal management subcommittee update.
Fiscal did meet tonight. We approved 2 employee contracts, and we talked and took some votes on some resolutions to buy some new fitness equipment at the high school, reading material for the middle school level. We've all talked about security in the district. We're buying an additional 80-plus radios for the district, 2-way radios, and also some interactive projectors. They're going to go into the middle school. So that was the bulk of our meeting tonight.
Thank you, Mr. DeMonica. Next item on the agenda, Policy and Procedures Subcommittee update. Mr. Fiorillo.
Mr. Chairman, due to the different budget talks and the bond issues, we have not met this week.
Thank you, Mr. Fiorillo. Next item, Achievement and Communications Subcommittee update. Mr. Denon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Along with Mr. Fiorillo, we did not meet this week because of budget meetings. So I think we're hoping to get through budget season, and then we'll pick up when budget season is done.
Thank you, Mr. Denon. Next item on the agenda, comments from the public. Please step up to the microphone and state your name. Anyone? Hello? Welcome.
We wanted to come today to kind of express our desire to integrate the campaign into the schools, spread awareness for pedestrian safety. I know it's the end of the year. This is Global Youth Traffic Safety Month. So what we're trying to do is maybe get some flyers, at least around the schools, and if possible, sent home with students. There's going to be more pedestrians out on the street now that school is over, and also from the research that we've done, we've noticed that a lot of issues arise with speeding around the schools during the summer months because it's not in session anymore. But it is still a place of recreation, playgrounds, things like that, where people feel safe to walk as pedestrians. So we're also hoping to maybe get some pedestrian safety type warning signs around the schools as well for the summer. So we just thought this was an appropriate place to come and express our desire and kind of need to get into the schools with this campaign. And that's about it. We do have some flyers to leave with you today that could go around the schools currently, and then I think you've all received the email about some ideas that we've come up with as well for short-term goals.
Thank you. You can leave the flyers right on that table. That's it. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Anyone else? Comments from the public? Next item on the agenda, old business. Discussion and/or vote to approve contract for the assistant superintendent. Pleasure of the committee.
Mr. Chairman, this was heard upstairs in fiscal. It is budgeted upstairs. So we have approved what was in the drive at the time, a new 3-year contract for the assistant superintendent. So to get the discussion going, I will move passage. It did pass upstairs in fiscal on a 2-0 vote. Mr. Fiorillo was absent at the time. Thank you.
Mr. DeMonica makes a motion for the passage of the assistant superintendent contract. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon. All in favor? Against?
Against.
Contract passes 6-4 and 1 against. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, discussion of CYSA field use agreement. There was a new contract put into a new, not a new contract. There was a new proposal put into our drives in regards to the CYSA. This is just for discussion. Not sure if the committee had a chance to review the proposal and wanted to discuss it tonight. So pleasure of the committee.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, I did review the letter, and I thought we were kind of clear the last time the group was in to work with Mr. Dathel, Mr. Campanelli. And at the last meeting, he told us it was working well. They were using the fields. And again, this letter again calls for exclusive use of our high school fields, and they don't want to pay for water. And we know the town's not going to give us the water for free as well. And Mr. Campanelli said it a while ago, he does not want to give up control of his fields. And I don't think we should go against him as well. And it worked out from what Mr. Campanelli said. So I don't understand why we're back here wanting exclusive use of those fields again when they're not being used by the school system. I just don't understand.
Thank you, Mr. DeMonica. There's still some obstacles that need to be worked out, so this committee has all of the facts of what the agreement would be if it does come, when it comes back in front of us. We did check with the trust on this. Mr. Prignano, could you come up? Did you speak to the, I cannot recall exactly. Thank you.
We did speak to the trust. They recommended that there would be agreements between the school department and the league if we did do something, and that the town and the school department would also be put on their insurance policies, or, also being insured against, you don't know who they're going to have maintain their fields, or could get hurt on their fields. I'm sure Mr. Adams could give us some advice on what we would want to see in that, but they did say it's possible, but.
Thank you, Mr. Prignano. Mrs. Goggin.
I'd also just like to say I was at the meeting for Parks and Rec where we were given a plan for field maintenance, and I know one of their problems is about field maintenance, but I'd also like to see what the town decides to do. They included those fields in the plan, not saying that they were going to take them, but at least if the town moves forward and we have a price, it may be something we could follow as well.
Thank you, Mrs. Goggin. Mr. Denon.
Yeah, I appreciate what Mrs. Goggin just said, because I was going to say we should wait to see what the town does. I guess, is there a proposal on the table from the administration? Like, do we have direction that we're being asked to do?
At this time, we do not. We're trying to, now I shouldn't say trying to accommodate, but we're listening to their proposal to see what we can do to move it forward. So at this point.
Yeah, I guess I was going to, I think we should wait to see what the town does, and then I would appreciate it if the superintendent and the athletic director just give us a recommendation of what they wanted to do, rather than us have something on our agenda where we can either say yes or no, but it's not clear why we would be doing that at this time.
Yep, just for discussion. All right. Thank you, Mr. Denon. Mr. Fiorillo.
I agree with Mr. DeMonica. I don't really want to give up control of our fields, regardless what their proposal might be. However, I do understand the CYSA's point of they're paying a lot of money in rentals. I had asked Mr. Prignano for that information, and he was kind enough to get it to me today. It's a lot of money, and maybe what we really need to do is earmark that money that we make from our use of facilities for all of our fields and reinvest it into those fields, whether it's water for irrigation, whether it's maintenance by a professional company, so that our fields are at the standard that they should be at. We are profiting from it. We should be returning the money back into those fields to maintain them the way that they should be maintained.
Thank you, Mr. Fiorillo. Any further discussion? Mr. Denon.
Yeah, Mr. Fiorella, I agree totally. I think if we're charging rent for those fields, we need to keep them to a level that that people are happy to pay for. And I think that the fields look great today. So I appreciate the work that has been done, but I know that a lot more could be done. And I agree with you that if we have an income stream or a rental stream, that money should really go into maintaining those fields. So I agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Denon. Next item on the agenda, new business, Cumberland High School Pathways Program presentation. Mr. Mitchell.
I know that we have a number of representatives from the high school that are here this evening to provide you with some information about the Pathways program.
Hello, welcome.
Having us all this evening. So we put together a presentation for you to highlight the hard work that the teachers have done this year in personalizing the experiences for the Cumberland High School students and their tracks to graduation. So going through the pathways, so Mike, are you gonna just push the button? All right, thank you. So we have put into place 4 applications through RIDE for upcoming pathways. And these pathways are personalized tracks towards graduation that will not only offer students credit towards their graduation, they'll also get some college credit through dual enrollment concurrent courses, industry certifications like the NOCTI and the OSHA, and then work-based learning as defined by RIDE. So these students will be working towards graduation while getting a jump start on whatever it is they choose to do once they leave our doors. So Prepare Rhode Island launched an initiative back in 2016. It's statewide push to try and get CTE programs in more high schools, comprehensive high schools being one of them, to personalize the tracks for all students statewide. They've been working with local businesses and partnerships, identifying some of the skills that the businesses and secondary institutions are looking for in students once they graduate high school. And there have been some partnerships with those businesses to put some plans into place to help those students going forward. One of them being the internship. So this coming summer, Prepare RI, the state, alongside with local partnerships, created a program that's going to have paid internships for over 150 students. They accepted applications from over 600 students statewide. They were looking at incoming seniors only. And what the students will do, they went through an application process. They went to a brief training or a meet and greet. And then the candidate pool was whittled down. We had 14 students that made it to round 2 of the interviews. RIDE was here last week interviewing those students. They'll get calls back to go towards round 3. Once they make it through, these students will be paired up with a business. They'll go through a boot camp where they work on some essential skills that the businesses have decided that they want the students to have. And then they'll have a 6-week internship program. And the boot camp and the internship are both paid at $10.10 an hour throughout the summer. So our students will be getting essential work-based learning experience and making connections in the business community that will help them after high school. The state has defined what they see as work-based learning. They want experiences in our high schools that are rigorous, relevant, aligned to the curriculum. They're integrated into the workforce or into their learning, and they're interactive. And at the same time, they want the students to be able to reflect on their learning, reflect on their experiences, and work with that. So what the teachers have done is they've taken the essential skills defined by RIDE, they've taken the work-based learning experiences defined by RIDE, and they've done a crosswalk so that they can look at the experiences that we're already providing for all of our students from 9 to 12, and then they can look at how they can reinvent some experiences in terms of what we offer here and what we can offer our students outside of the classroom that align to these goals right here. So in this slide, it defines the work-based learning as either an internship, an apprenticeship, service learning, which is a graduation requirement now. So we're looking at how we can take our current service learning model and then track it towards a pathway. So how can we get our students that are already completing service learning to do it in a meaningful way where they're also getting hands-on work learning? The school-based enterprise like we had in a school store previously, or some sort of industry project, something that's aligned to the business or the industry that they can do within the classroom and is meaningful. So here's a draft of what that could look like. So we're still in the preparation phase here, but in grades 9, 10, 11, and 12 as the students go through. So we have simulated classroom experiences, project-based learning that carry through 9 to 12, but we want to implement some job shadows in grades 9 and 10 so the students can reach out to the community. The students can start to make partnerships with people on our local business advisory boards. They can start to make those connections that'll carry through into their service learning and then also into their internships. So it'll be a give and take. The students will be able to provide to the businesses, and the businesses will help our students out by giving them those opportunities. We're also looking at updating the senior portfolio process so that it's more meaningful to our students in these pathways and they can apply this reflective process with these essential skills that RIDE has identified in their portfolio. So rather than doing the one-size-fits-all portfolio that our seniors are doing now, we're looking at tailoring it to the individual pathways. So in Project Lead the Way, the biomedical science pathway, how are the students reflecting throughout their 4 years in this program? How are they showing those 5 essential skills? How did they use their service learning and grow from this? And what are they going to take with them when they leave here? So the team is getting together. There's a portfolio review team that has gotten together already. and we're going to collaborate so we can redefine this portfolio process. So currently, we put 4 applications into RIDE, our robotics and pre-engineering, information technology, law and public safety, and the biomedical sciences. We have 2 more that we already have all of the courses in place for. The pathway sequence is written. We just haven't written out the applications yet. So the humanities and world language, as well as business and entrepreneurship. Our arts department is working hard right now to define what their pathways are going to look like in terms of a 2D arts program, 3D arts program, and a graphic arts. So Pontigansett worked on theirs. We've collaborated with them. Our art department has worked with Lynn Bedard there so that we can learn from what they did when they paved the way in that work. So one of the big concerns that we've heard when we presented to parents and when we went to the middle schools is 13 and 14-year-olds don't know what they want to do when they graduate from high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I graduated from high school, but students don't need to decide when they're going into 9th grade. They don't have to pick a pathway right away. They can wait until 10th grade, they can wait until 11th grade, because what we find students are doing is the students who like the technology are choosing those courses for their electives anyway. So by the time they decide that's what they want to do when they leave our doors, they've got those electives in the bag, they've already taken them. And so what we would ask the students to do when they're starting to decide what they want to do is just look at the courses you've taken, look at your electives within your schedule, and which path do you want to go on. So if you're a 10th grader and you think you have room and you want to go into IT or robotics and pre-engineering, just make sure that you're taking those courses and you're on the right track, and you can apply in 9th, 10th, or 11th grade as long as you're on track. So I think next we're going to have some of our teachers come up and talk about their individual programs. So up here on the board, you'll see the course sequence, as well as what some of those outcomes are going to be. So if you want to take a second and look at it and ask any questions. Jess, you want to come up? Jess Lane is going to come up and answer any questions that you might have.
Hello, welcome.
Heather's way taller than I am. So in our biomed pathways, this is our first graduating senior class that will be completing all 4 courses. Majority of the kids right now, so I teach the 4th course, which is the Capstone Biomedical Innovations, which Ms. Mitchell actually came and saw some of the presentations today. So we have most of them taking, able to take all 4 years with 1 course in each year. We do have a couple kids that did double up when they realized, like Heather had said, that sophomore or junior year, they were like, this is really what I want to focus on. So we make accommodations to make sure that these kids get the opportunity to take all of the courses as well as complete the graduation requirements. So I can go in more detail, but I'll take any questions if anyone has anything. So.
Anyone from the committee? Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Who else? We have an open microphone. There we go. Hello, welcome.
Hi, I'm Amanda Latoile. I worked on the application for the Law and Public Safety pathway. This pathway has actually been in existence at Cumberland High School since 2007. Mr. Matt Nasev and one of our former science teachers worked to implement this back then. In 2007, we were able to secure an articulation agreement with Roger Williams that we've kept since that time. Essentially, students that are in the pathway will take a criminal justice class with us that's aligned to the Roger Williams curriculum. They maintain a B+ average in that class and write a paper and go down to Roger Williams to defend it in front of the professors. Roger Williams will award them 3 credits for the criminal justice class that are transferable to anywhere they would want to go. Same thing for the law and society class. Same process, maintain a B+ average, write a paper, go down to the university, defend your paper, and they'll award you an additional 3 credits for that class as well, which are also transferable. The forensics course, which is also in the 12th grade year, they will also receive credit from Roger Williams for that course, so long as they maintain a B+ average. The only caveat with the forensics class is in order to actually get the credits, you do have to take an assessment at Roger Williams, pass that assessment, and the forensics credits are not transferable. So if you want those forensics credits, you do have to attend Roger Williams for them. So ultimately, students really have the opportunity to earn 6 transferable credits, 9 credits in total if they stay at Roger Williams. And in fact, this year we just, we had a student that graduated from Cumberland High School through our pathway, went to Roger Williams and just graduated with a law degree from Roger Williams. And this year we've had 2 students go down with defense papers, and we're just waiting back to hear if they're gonna earn the credits or not. The other nice thing with this pathway is that because it is law and public safety, you've got the law side of things, which includes, you know, everything from paralegals up through law school, policing, correctional officers, that all falls in this pathway. But then we also have the EMS side of things. And this year, we were very, very fortunate that we were able to, for the first time, in conjunction with the Cumberland Rescue Division, offer an EMT basic class to our graduating seniors. We had 9 students sign up initially, 5 completed, and they'll be sitting for their national exam sometime within the next few months and hopefully pass the exam and become licensed EMTs. So that's another really great part of this pathway. So
Excellent update. Thank you.
happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Mr. Fiorillo?
I'm just curious, does this open up any scholarship opportunities also? Having this background of work already going into the college level?
I'm sure to speak specifically about specific scholarships, I can't speak to that, but I would think having these course experiences, having basically a resume that would look like this would lend itself to scholarships. But to speak specifically to any, I can't do that.
Was I in your class last year when I shadowed a student?
You were. You were in my AP Psych class.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you. Any further questions from the committee? All right. Thank you very much. Excellent update. Hello. Welcome.
Hello.
Gentlemen.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for having us. My name's Eric Giorgio. I teach math and computer science here this year. And
Mike Stead. I teach robotics engineering and computer science.
so currently this year, out of the Pathways courses, I teach AP Computer Science A as well as Java Programming Honors, which are 2 new classes here at the high school this year. And this pathway is really focused on just developing software and computer skills so that students can have those essential job skills of understanding how a program is built, how a computer works, how can I develop software and other applications as they enter into college. It's quite frankly an experience I wish that I had in high school because I ended up going into that in college having never seen it before. So to even get that little advantage on these modern job opportunities, I think is really invaluable for them. As far as the pathway progression is concerned, it starts with just an intro to computer science course, which sort of gives them an overview of general essential skills that they'll need. And what I really like about this is as it progresses to the AP Computer Science principles, followed by the programming classes, followed by the internship, which I'll talk about in a minute, is that kids really get a chance to get a little flavor of everything in the technology world, so to speak, yet they still get to specialize in a hardware component or a software component. So more of the programming classes will be focused on software. How do we develop software and applications? Whereas some of the hardware stuff, which especially comes up in robotics as well, which will be next, they really talk about how can we build a computer? How can we build a machine that accomplishes X, Y, and Z? Do you want to talk about the internship at the end?
Yeah, I'll talk about the AP Computer Science principles. So that class there, our kids are concurrently enrolled at URI. So they get 8 college credits. They're concurrently enrolled, so whatever they get for a grade at Cumberland, they actually get on their transcript at URI. And because it's official transcript at URI with a grade, those are transferred to any college they go to. Right now, the state pays for it, so that's free for all of our students that take the course.
Yeah. Same thing with the AP Computer Science A is also an AP credit that kids can earn. It's going to be transferable to many schools because, you know, all those technology classes are the up and coming things. So that's what we like to see. Just about the internship a little bit at the end. We're really trying to brainstorm some ideas. We actually met with Heather last week trying to brainstorm some ideas for students during that internship so it doesn't just turn into grunt work, so that it's actual meaningful experience. And the experiences we had in mind where students being able to not just repair and fix Chromebooks, which will alleviate a lot of pressure on our IT department, but it will also be to maybe do some wiring in some of the classrooms, maybe serve as a tech support hotline, maybe develop applications that teachers can use to cut down on costs. I know currently one expense that our theater program uses is they actually use a software that they have paid for to run ticket sales and to manage ticket sales. Well, if through our program and through our internship, students could program something that does that for them for free. So it's just those little ways that we can potentially cut costs here and there, little conveniences that we can present one by one. I think that could really have a good long-term impact. So anything else?
Excellent. What about drones? Where are we at?
That's gonna be the robotic stuff, right?
No, we don't. Drones is somebody else. That's
I
separate.
know some things were moved around, so I wasn't
Separate.
sure.
Yeah, yeah. That's not part of the curriculum.
It would be cool though.
It would.
Robotic drones. Any further questions? Excellent. Thank you.
One of the programs that I've been working on for the last 6 years was the robotics and pre-engineering. When we first started out, we had no equipment. And so we had the kids do some volunteer work, raise some money, get some little kits. And now we've had the program grow. So we have robotics, we have engineering, we have CAD, we have mechatronics. So we've really grown the program over these last 6 years. We've had over $100,000 in grants to pay for all the equipment. We actually had the state come in last week, and we are applying for certification for our pathway. And they were very impressed with all the equipment that we have, which is fantastic. What we're looking at doing with our pathway is setting it up so that kids understand exactly what engineering is. We used to have kids that would take physics, and then they wanted to go to school for engineering. Then they'd come back to the school, and they would complain that they were not doing what they thought they were going to do. They thought engineering was just doing some problems and solving stuff out, and that was it. So with our engineering, our intro class, we really give them an introduction to all things with engineering. We go through the engineering design cycle. With that, they work as teams. Every project that they do, they have to present it. The nice thing with that is they present it as a group. Everyone has their part. So they get an individual credit, but they're working as a team as they would if they go to school for engineering, which is a great lesson for them because, like I said, the kids were going to school before and they had no idea that that was part of it. With the class, we start out with that. Then we get into some basic CAD stuff. So the kids are designing stuff on the computer. We print it out on the 3D printer, and that's kind of an intro for them into that. Then we get into our electronics. So we get into electronic circuits, Arduino boards, so that they can program things. They have lights flashing. They make like electronic dice, spinners. They make things that can detect if there's a fire and all kinds of stuff, and then have something happen. One of the kids for the final project, they created a plant water. So the sensor determines if the soil is too dry, automatically waters. When it's dry enough, moist enough, it stops, and so on. At the end of the intro to engineering class, the kids will work again as a team, and they pick the project that they want to do. They'll design stuff on the computer, they'll 3D print it, they'll add the electronics, and they'll add the programming to it. So they're really taking all aspects of engineering that we're going to be covering over the 4 years in that first year and getting a good idea if this is what they want to do. The nice thing with this class is those kids that are coming in to the pathway as 9th graders, they're getting a good introduction to what's expected going forward. And then those kids that really are not interested in the pathway coming in, and they take that class either in 9th grade or 10th grade, then they get an overview of what the whole thing is, and hopefully more of those kids get excited, and then they'll jump into the pathway at that point. For our senior year, the kids will be coming back together as a group, because in the junior year, they kind of split up. Some kids will get into programming and electronics, some kids will get into the CAD and the 3D printing, some kids will get more into the robotic stuff. And that last year, they come together and they work as a team on the individual components. So that's how we have that going. Do you have any questions?
Excellent. Thank you.
So the last two programs that we're going to write the applications for are the Humanities and World Languages. The Humanities and World Languages is a well-rounded pathway for anyone who's interested in those areas. So there are some history courses, some social studies courses, and then the world language courses as well. And then the sixth and final one is the business and entrepreneurship. So when looking at RIDE's requirements for a business and entrepreneurship pathway, we have all of the courses that are required. We have our previous school-based enterprise. And so we just need to put in the man hours to put the application together for that course sequence so the students can get the certifications and credentials they need at the end of that pathway. So another concern that we've heard is what is going to be the cost to the district? And that's important, especially with where we are now. So when we looked at this data this morning, when we looked at the seats that we had available in our 9th grade cohort coming in these pathways courses, RIDE also just came out with their new funding formula at the beginning of May. We could be looking at, if we had opened our doors and we had been ready, at $1.2 million in tuition revenue from out-of-district students, and that's with the teachers that we currently have on staff, the classroom resources, and the technology that we already have in place. So these programs that we're looking towards implementing for these students are not currently at an additional cost for any of the district the way they are now. So we have the staffing, we have all the materials that we need. We're going to be looking at the NOCTI and the OSHA exams and how we can pay for those, but it's minimal compared to what these programs could be doing for the district in terms of raising the bar in education for all of our students across the district. So thank you. And we have some student testimonials on the next slide. The students that are in these programs now have a lot of great things to say about them. So we asked a couple students for some quotes about what has this done to prepare you for life when you leave high school. And so that was a couple up here from a variety of pathways. So thank you. Any questions?
Mrs. Friedman?
Really great work. So congratulations to everyone. And
Teachers did a great job.
Which pathways are certified by the state?
So we wrote the applications for the 4.
Yep.
So we got the provisional acceptance last week or a week and a half ago for the biomedical sciences one. That one's accredited through Project Lead the Way. So it was a different certification process because it's pre-accredited. The 3 traditional programs, they came out and did our site visit this Monday. And we're going to hear back, they said at the end of June is when they're going to give the final notice for any new applications that went through RIDE this year.
And then would you know when we would be in a position to accept students out of district?
So my take on that is the next step would be to work with the team to determine what that application process is going to look like for out-of-district students. So we have the application criteria. We have a tentative application. We have a lottery process that we've written a draft of. And thank you. He's been looking at it quite often, giving me a little bit of feedback. So we want to make sure that when we go forward, we're prepared to handle the out-of-district students. We're prepared to handle any sort of application. We want to make sure that we're ready when we open up those doors in terms of transportation, what the scheduling process is going to look like for those students, and that we can get the ball moving on that. So I think there would be a transitional period of at least a year to make sure everything's ready so we could go the following year.
Okay, just one general comment. So this is part of the superintendent's budget to include or add a pathways coordinator to help with all of this awesome work that you guys are doing with not only the pathways, but gaining internships and being able to do more of this. So this is just a comment to the general public that we have our first public hearing of the mayor's budget on Tuesday, May 29th at 6:30 at McCourt Middle School. And then the second hearing and the first vote is Thursday, May 31st at 6:30, with the final vote on June 6th at the town council meeting at 7:30. So I am just encouraging people who see all this great work that's happening to know that this is part of our budget and that we are working with the town council and the mayor on how can we support this work through the budget that the superintendent's put forth. So these budget hearings are important to that.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Mrs. Friedman, thank you. I was going to touch base on that later, but I'm glad you did it now. That's excellent. Mr. DeMonica.
This question would be for the superintendent. Are we going to need a new policy to allow the district to take these other district students in? Will we need something in writing?
question, good point. And yes, we are probably going to need to put something in writing and develop some sort of a policy. So we'll have to be working on that as well.
I believe Ponegantset has such a policy, so we would just model ours after theirs.
Excellent, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda, discussion and/or vote to approve the employee contract for our superintendent. Pleasure of the committee.
Mr. Chairman, this was heard upstairs as well. This is just, it's a correction that we had forgot about when we did this contract the last meeting. So it did get approved upstairs in a 2-0 vote, and I would move passage.
Thank you, Mr. DeMonica. Mr. DeMonica recommending passage of the superintendent's contract. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Fiorillo. All in favor? Against? Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, discussion and a vote to approve the appointment of a high school assistant principal of teaching and learning. Mr. Mitchell, did you want to touch base on
This, yeah, this position is the position that's held by Mrs. McMorrow. As you may recall, she was initially hired as a teaching and learning coach. And now that she has the certification in hand, we are recommending that she now take on that title of assistant principal for teaching and learning.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. DeMonica?
Inadvertently, the school district, the committee, we approved the position about a month ago. And the human resource forgot to bring us this portion of it, but it is budgeted. We've already voted to fund the position.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. DeMonica. Pleasure of the committee. A motion? Mr. Denon makes a motion to approve the high school assistant principal of teaching and learning. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Hess and Mr. DeMonica. All in favor? Against? Ayes have it, 7-0. Excellent. Next item on the agenda, discussion and or vote to approve the homeschool instruction request for the 2017-2018 school year. Mr. Mitchell, did you want to touch base on this?
Mr. Chair, there is one request this evening that we are asking approval for. One request.
Mr. DeMonica, I do have a quick question. So it is kind of late in the school year. What would bring up something like this?
It's an atypical circumstance that has manifested itself. The Special Services Office would be able to provide details on that.
Yeah, no problem. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. DeMonica. Pleasure of the committee for a motion. Mr. Fiorillo makes a motion to approve the homeschool instruction request. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. DeMonica and Mr. Denon. We're gonna get those buttons, right? The lights up. All in favor? Against? Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, discussion and a vote to approve resolutions. You have 5, Mr. DeMonica. Take the first one.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have the first one.
Oh, I apologize. I just looked quick and I said, that's Mrs. Goggin. Mrs. Goggin, I apologize.
I'll try to be quick. I just have a few things to say about this resolution to amend Article 12 of the Rhode Island State Constitution. I think it surprises a lot of people to know that public education isn't a fundamental right of every citizen guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution, never mind our state constitution. This resolution is petitioning the state legislature to pass the 2 bills that would cause a referendum amending Article 12, and this would recognize public education as a fundamental right. This is important to me. My dad grew up during the Depression. I'm never really sure I've been able to comprehend how little he had, but he had parents that really saw a value in education. It guided his life, it's guided mine, but the problem is everybody doesn't have those kind of parents. And I think it's our job, it's our duty to make sure somebody's fighting for those kids and ensuring they get this type of education. And I see these comments out there about, maybe public education isn't worth it anymore, that homeschooling and private schools are the way to go. And it's not that there's anything wrong with those options, but they take a certain level of a parent's commitment and everybody doesn't have it. They shouldn't be penalized for that. So I think it's the duty of our government to ensure that a public education is a fundamental right. I'd like to echo Mrs. Friedman's comments the other night. Just that, we need to do this. We all benefit from having educated voters. Our society depends on it, and it's the right thing to do. And if I can end with a Thomas Jefferson quote on education, the tax which will be paid for this purpose is not more than the 1,000th part of what we will be paid to kings, priests, and nobles who will rise up among us if we leave the people in ignorance. So I'd like to move passage for the resolution to amend Article 12.
Excellent overview. Goggin, thank you. Mrs. Goggin makes a motion to approve Resolution SCR 2018-09. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. DeMonica and Mr. Denon. Oh, I'm sorry, and Mrs. Friedman. Some days I'll ask for a motion or a second. It's quiet. It's
Mr. Chair, we should all endorse this one.
Motion, we have a second. All in favor? Against? Ayes have it. 7-0. Thank you. Thank you for bringing this to us also, Mrs. Goggin. Next item on the agenda, Mr. DeMonica.
All right, this was heard up in fiscal. It's SCPR 5 2018-20. It's a resolution empowering the Cumberland School Committee to award to Jim Source of Hartford, Connecticut, for some equipment to go into the high school wellness center. And it's an amount of $16,794. They did go out to bid with 4 bidders, and the money for this will come out of our savings from this year. It did pass upstairs. I moved passage on a 2-0 vote.
Thank you, Mr. DeMonica. Mr. DeMonica makes a motion for passage of SCPR 5 2018-20. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Hess. All in favor? Against? Ayes have it. 7-0. Fitness equipment. Mr. DeMonica.
Next is SCPR 5 2018-21, a resolution authorizing and empowering the school committee to execute a purchase from American Reading Company of Pennsylvania for books, skill cards, and workbooks to use at the middle schools in the amount not to exceed $33,540. The funds are available from the Assistant Superintendent's salary budget. We were given an explanation in our drives from the school department, and it passed upstairs. I would move passage in a 2-0 vote. I move passage.
Mr. DeMonica makes a motion for passage for SCPR 5 2018-21. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon. All in favor? Against? Ayes have it. 7-0. Thank you.
Right, next is SCPR 5 2018-22, resolution empowering the school committee to award to Cyber Communications of Warwick, Rhode Island, to purchase 83 portable radios for all the schools in the district. This is part of our upgrade of security things that we've talked about in the past. And the schools put in for radios, and this is what's left of some bond money from the town. I should say master lease money. The amount is $43,515.60. It passed upstairs in a 2-0 vote, and I would move passage.
Thank you, Mr. DeMonica. Mr. DeMonica makes a motion for the approval of SCPR 5 2018-22. Do I have a second? Second by Mrs. Friedman and Mr. Fiorillo. All in favor? Against? Ayes have it. 7-0. Thank you.
Next is SCPR 5 2018-23, resolution empowering the school committee to purchase from CDW government for 15 interactive projectors and wall mounts in an amount not to exceed $15,890. It is budgeted in this year's technology capital equipment budget, and it passed upstairs, and I would move passage on a 2-0 vote.
Mr. DeMonica makes a motion to for passage of SCPR 5 2018-23. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Hess and, I'm sorry, Mrs. Friedman. Thank you. All in favor? Against? Ayes have it. 7-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, personnel recommendations. Vote on the resignation of one Human Resources Director. Mr. Mitchell.
Mr. Chairman, I request the advice and consent on the resignation of Tina Fogel, Human Resource Director, effective June 30th, 2018.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Sadly, pleasure of the committee. Mr. Denon makes a motion to approve the resignation of our Human Resources Director. Do I have a second? I'm sorry, accept the recommendation. Vote on resignation of one Human Resources. Okay. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Demotica. Yeah. Mr. Fiorillo.
I just want to mention that I, for one, will sorely miss Mrs. Vogel. I've worked very closely with her as part of the policy subcommittee. The work that she's done has been extremely important. Her value to the school district cannot be overstated. Between the legal work that she's been able to do for us, as well as the work she has done in human resources to really turn that into a professional operation, is going to be missed. So,
Great. I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor? Against? I vote nay as well. Resignation passes. Approval of the resignation passes 5-2. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, school committee comments, school liaison reports. Anyone? Pleasure of the committee.
Chair.
Mr. Demotica.
I don't want to take away your thunder, but we had a good meeting the other day with the town fiscal finance subcommittee over our budget. We're not as in dire straits as we were the last 2 years, but we still need the cooperation of the town as well, and I think we will get there this year, but we still do need the public to come out, show your support. We have the pathways coming. We want to keep more students in Cumberland so they don't leave. Among other things, we're doing some good work here, and I think this year will be better than most. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Demotica. I agree. There was a lot of great takeaways there. The presentation from our administration and input from school committee members. And also, Councilman Bob Shaw mentioned that one of the segments that we're waiting for is a 300,000, the town's waiting for 300,000 rebate in regards to National Grid and some modifications. Mr. Shaw is making the proposal that instead of the town waiting for that 300,000 to put back into our budget, is to pull it from their reserve or allocate from somewhere else within their budget. And I think that's great. That's one less item that we need to worry about. So that was great news. It was a great meeting. Looking forward to the upcoming budget hearings and the involvement from the community, from parents, and educators within our district. So, excellent. Anyone else? Mr. Demonica.
Just kudos to the ladies here for that presentation.
I agree.
It was clean, it was good, it was quick. It told the story that what we need to do, and between your superintendent, Mr. Pignano, and others, great job. Thank you. People just don't see what we do in the background as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Demonica. Anyone else? Mr. Hess.
I would just like to say that presentation of the pathways was really tremendous. I mean, the innovation and the efforts that are being expended and the benefits to the students cannot be understated. I mean, these are students that are getting college credit, they're getting experiential employment credit. We're really preparing kids for post-high school life. And you know, I've seen comments online about that, you know, we're not in competition with other towns, we're not in other competition with other school systems, and that can't be further from the truth. Our students have to compete with students from other towns, with students from other school districts, both to get into college as well as employment after school, and preparing them is how we compete. And I think it's a tremendous kudos to the administration and the teachers to see this type of work, and the fact that we've already been doing this type of work and we're really just codifying it with the pathways. I would love to see an outreach program to former alums that have benefited from this to be able to come back and speak to current students, to be able to explain how the courses that they took in school fostered where they ended up as employees, whether it's in law enforcement or the law or IT. The other thing I'd like to say, following up on Mrs. Goggins' comment as far as Title 12 goes, Massachusetts has been regarded for years as having the best public school system in the country. And if you follow the history of it, the impetus for all of the changes that Massachusetts implemented was a Supreme Court Massachusetts Supreme Court decision that codified that education, public education, a quality public education, is a fundamental constitutional right in Massachusetts. That is what started the revolution of Massachusetts' education system. That was the impetus for everything else. So I don't think it can be understated how important it is and how much of a difference it makes when the state stands up and says, yes, you are entitled to a quality public education. So I'm glad to see that that's on the agenda for the state. I think that's another thing that parents should support and call out to their representatives, because it's that important. Thank you.
Very well said, Mr. Hess. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I can just follow up on that. Sadly, Pawtucket and Woonsocket, went to court following the Massachusetts decision, and initially they said, yes, you're right, you have a right to this, and then it was overturned, and here we are. That was, I think, in '93 and '95, and here we are 20 years later, and we haven't done anything. Yeah.
Mrs. Goggin? Anyone else? Mr. Denon.
I just wanted to share that I went to the Screenagers documentary earlier this week. I don't know if anyone else went last week. I know you were there too. It was really eye-opening and makes me not want to use my computer a lot, or my phone, especially when I'm at home with my kids. I just want to express gratitude to the PTOs for putting it on, and Mrs. Sarah for driving it. I understand you were one of the driving forces, or the driving force. So thank you very much. It was appreciated. And my son thought it was interesting too. It was eye-opening for him. Thank you.
Mr. Denon, thank you. I agree with that as well. I thought it was only going to be educational in regards to students, but I found it educational for myself and family members also. So excellent. Anyone else? I love these updates. Okay. Next item on the agenda, Mr. Mitchell, do we have executive session?
No, we do not, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fiorillo makes a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Hess. All in favor? Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.